Welcome to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring the random prompts of Daniel Rosehill as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters. Join us for deep dives into AI, technology, and whatever other random thing Daniel finds fascinating today. Subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcatcher. Now, today's episode.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
Hey everyone, welcome back to My Weird Prompts. It's Sunday, March 1st, 2026, and we are coming to you with a special urgent update. I'm Corn, and I'm here in Jerusalem with my brother,
Herman Poppleberry here. And let's just acknowledge the gravity of why we're recording this right now. The time is exactly 14:29 UTC. If you've looked at a screen or a headline in the last 24 hours, you know the world is a very different place than it was on Friday. This is a special situational report on the outbreak of direct hostilities between the United States, Israel, and the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Our housemate Daniel sent us a prompt this morning that really cut through the noise. He wanted us to step away from our usual deep dives and provide a clear, analytical, situational report on the war that has just erupted.
It's a heavy one, Daniel, but it's necessary. We're looking at the most significant geopolitical shift since the end of the Cold War, and it's happening right in our backyard. The situation is moving so fast that what we say now might be superseded by the time this hits your ears. But as of 14:29 UTC, here is where we stand.
Let's start with the event that changed everything. Yesterday, February 28th, the United States and Israel launched a massive coordinated strike campaign. The Americans called it Operation Epic Fury, and the Israelis dubbed it Operation Roaring Lion. Herman, we've seen tensions simmer for years, but this wasn't just another round of mowing the grass. This was a decapitation strike.
Exactly. This wasn't a limited strike on nuclear facilities like Operation Midnight Hammer back in June of 2025. This was a systematic attempt to erase the top tier of the Iranian leadership. Iranian state media confirmed early this morning that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is dead. He was 86 years old. He'd been the final word in Iran for 37 years, and now he's gone.
And it wasn't just him. The list of high-value targets confirmed killed is staggering. We're talking about the Chief of Staff of the Army, Abdurrahim Mousavi, the Commander of the Revolutionary Guard Ground Forces, Mohammad Patpour, Defense Minister Amir Nasirzadeh, and the Armed Forces Chief of Staff Mohammad Bagheri. Even Ali Shamkhani, who was a key advisor and former security chief, was caught in the net.
It's basically a clean sweep of the old guard. President Trump announced it in a very unconventional way through a post on Truth Social around 2 in the morning East Coast time before the Pentagon had even briefed the press. He's been very clear that this heavy and pinpoint bombing will continue throughout the week or as long as necessary. We are seeing reports of B-21 Raiders being used in their first major combat roles to penetrate the deep-buried command centers in Tehran.
But Iran hasn't just sat back. Within hours, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched their response, Operation True Promise 4. This wasn't a symbolic gesture. They targeted 27 United States bases across the region. We're seeing reports of ballistic missiles and drone swarms hitting facilities in Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia.
The impact on the Gulf states has been particularly brutal. In Bahrain, a Shahed drone actually hit a residential tower block near the United States Navy 5th Fleet headquarters in Manama. Think about that. The heart of American naval power in the Middle East is under direct fire. The United States Embassy there has officially closed its doors. And Dubai, Corn, look at what's happening there.
It's surreal. Iran reportedly fired 137 missiles and over 200 drones at the United Arab Emirates. There are massive fires at the Palm Jumeirah and near the Burj Al Arab. Dubai International Airport has cancelled about 70% of its flights, that is, 747 flights grounded in a single day. Etihad has suspended everything until tomorrow. This is one of the world's most critical transit hubs, and it's effectively a combat zone.
And we have to talk about the human cost, because it's gut-wrenching. In southern Iran, in a town called Mainab, a strike reportedly a joint United States-Israeli effort hit a primary school. The numbers are horrifying. 108 schoolgirls killed, 92 wounded. Out of 170 students, almost every single one was a casualty.
It's a catastrophe. On the other side, an Iranian missile strike on Beit Shemesh, right near us here in Israel, killed 8 or 9 people. In the United Arab Emirates, 3 civilians are confirmed dead. The civilian toll is mounting on all sides, and we're only 36 hours into this thing.
There's also the internal situation in Iran to consider. NetBlocks is reporting a near-total internet blackout. Connectivity is at 4%. The regime is trying to control the narrative, but videos have leaked out showing a strange mix of reactions. You have people in the streets mourning. Iran has declared 40 days of mourning and a 7-day national holiday, but you also have videos of people celebrating the death of the supreme leader. The security forces are reportedly opening fire on anyone seen celebrating. It's a powder keg inside a powder keg.
What happens to the government now? If the supreme leader is dead and half the military command is gone, who is actually in charge?
They've activated Article 111 of the Iranian Constitution. There's an interim leadership council. It's composed of President Masoud Pezeshkian, the head of the Judiciary Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ejeh, and Alireza Arafi from the Guardian Council. They're supposed to hold the fort until the Assembly of Experts, that is, the 88-member body of clerics, can choose a new supreme leader. But with the country under constant bombardment, how does that body even meet, let alone decide the future of the nation?
And then there's the Strait of Hormuz. This is the big one for the global economy. Iran is sending out VHF radio warnings saying the strait is closed. They're telling ships that United States warships are legitimate targets. We already have one oil tanker, the Skylight, which was attacked near the strait. 4 mariners were wounded.
Most shipping has just paused. They're waiting to see if the United States Navy will try to force the passage. If that strait stays closed, oil is going to skyrocket. It's expected to hit $80 a barrel the second markets open on Monday, and if we see a prolonged closure, $100 is a very conservative estimate. Global equities are already predicted to drop at least 2%. We've already seen over 1,500 flights canceled across the Middle East today alone.
It's worth noting the tragic irony here. Just 2 days ago, on February 27th, Oman was mediating what looked like a massive diplomatic breakthrough. Iran had reportedly agreed to never stockpile enriched uranium and to allow full verification by the International Atomic Energy Agency. The Central Intelligence Agency is now saying that the strikes have caused so much damage to the nuclear infrastructure that it would take years to rebuild anyway. All that diplomacy was overtaken by events in a matter of hours.
It's the ultimate what if. If those strikes had been held back for 48 hours, would we be looking at a new nuclear deal instead of a regional war? We'll never know. But Daniel asked us to look forward. We need to talk about where this goes from here. We've identified 4 distinct scenarios for how this conflict could evolve.
Right. Let's dig into these. Scenario 1 is the one everyone fears, full regional escalation. This is the total war scenario.
In this version, the Strait of Hormuz is formally and physically closed. Mines, anti-ship missiles, the works. Iran activates every proxy it has. Hezbollah opens a full-scale second front from Lebanon. The Houthis in Yemen start hitting everything that moves in the Red Sea. We see direct Iranian strikes on oil refineries in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, not just military bases.
The likelihood, I'd say it's uncomfortably high, maybe 40%. The indicator to watch is the movement of the United States carrier strike groups, the Gerald Ford and the Abraham Lincoln. If they move into the Persian Gulf to force the strait, that's the trigger. The timeline would be immediate, over the next 72 hours. The implications are a global economic depression and a war that could last years.
It's the nightmare scenario. But let's look at scenario 2, decapitation success. This is what the planners of Operation Epic Fury are likely hoping for.
This is where the loss of Khamenei and the top generals causes the regime to fracture. You have the moderates, like Pezeshkian trying to find an exit, while the remnants of the Revolutionary Guard want to fight to the death. If the internal power struggle turns into a civil war, the military capacity to fight the United States and Israel just evaporates.
I give this about a 25% chance. The key indicator is the internet silence. If the blackout continues, but we start seeing reports of Revolutionary Guard units fighting each other or deserting, that's the sign. The timeline for this is a bit longer, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. The implication is a chaotic, failed state in Iran, which is its own kind of disaster, but it ends the regional war quickly.
Scenario 3 is the diplomatic off-ramp. This feels like a long shot right now, but in geopolitics things can change.
This would require the United Nations or a neutral party, maybe China or Oman again, to broker an immediate ceasefire. The United States would have to feel they've achieved their objectives by killing the leadership, and the new Iranian Council would have to decide that survival is better than martyrdom.
Likelihood? Honestly, maybe 10%. The indicators would be a sudden pause in the bombing and an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council that actually results in a resolution both sides don't immediately ignore. The timeline would be this week. The implication would be a very cold, very tense peace, but at least the killing stops.
And that brings us to Scenario 4, asymmetric prolonged conflict. This might be the most realistic one.
This is where Iran realizes they can't win a conventional war against the United States and Israel, so they stop trying. Instead, they fade into the background. They use the long shadow of their proxies. Hezbollah, the Houthis, and various militias in Iraq and Syria start a war of attrition. They hit soft targets, they use cyber warfare, and they keep the region in a state of constant, low-intensity chaos for months or years.
I put this at 25% as well. The indicator is a shift in Iranian rhetoric, moving away from Operation True Promise and toward the eternal resistance. The timeline is months, if not years. The implication is a Middle East that is permanently unstable, where no one ever feels truly safe, and the global economy has to permanently adjust to higher energy costs and risk premiums.
It's a lot to process. When you look at those 4 paths, none of them lead back to the status quo. The Middle East of February 26th is gone.
It really is. And I think what's most striking to me, Corn, is how much of this was driven by the Lucas drones. We saw reports this morning that the United States is using these reverse-engineered Shahad drones, American versions of Iranian technology, to take out Iranian targets. It's this weird recursive loop of warfare. We're using their own low-cost swarm tactics against them to preserve our high-value assets like the F-35s.
It's a technological turning point as much as a political one. But let's take a step back and think about what this means for the person listening to this. If you're in Dubai or Manama, or even here in Jerusalem, the world feels very small and very dangerous right now.
It does. And if you're elsewhere, you're going to feel this at the pump, in your retirement account, and in the news cycle every single day. This isn't a faraway war anymore. The globalized nature of the economy means we are all participants in this conflict, whether we like it or not.
So, what are the practical takeaways for our listeners? First, stay informed, but be wary of the source. With the internet blackout in Iran and the unconventional way the United States is announcing operations, misinformation is going to be rampant. Use multiple sources. Check the timestamps.
Second, watch the energy markets. If you have the flexibility to adjust your travel or your business logistics, do it now. We've already seen over 1,500 flights canceled. That's going to get worse before it gets better.
And third, keep an eye on the diplomatic movements in Europe and China. The international reaction shows a deep divide. China is strongly condemning the strikes as a violation of sovereignty, while the European Commission is talking about renewed hope for the people of Iran. That split is going to define the geopolitical landscape for the rest of the decade.
It really is the end of an era and the beginning of something much more uncertain. I mean, we've talked about Iranian succession for years on this show, but we always imagined it would be a natural process after Khamenei passed away from old age. To have it happen via a precision-guided munition while he was in his office, it changes the psychological makeup of the entire region.
It removes the mystique of the regime, but it replaces it with a desperate, cornered animal energy. That's what makes Scenario 1 so terrifying. If the Revolutionary Guard feels they have nothing left to lose, they will try to take the whole world down with them.
I think that's a great point. The rational actor model often fails when you're dealing with a revolutionary ideology that views martyrdom as a victory. If the interim council feels that the Islamic Republic is truly ending, they might decide to go out in a literal blaze of glory.
We'll be watching the assembly of experts very closely over the next few days. If they can actually convene, and if they pick a hardliner's hardliner, that's a signal that the fight is just beginning. If they pick someone more pragmatic, maybe there's a sliver of hope for Scenario 3.
We should also mention the domestic political angle in the United States. Representative Thomas Massie is already working to force a congressional vote on the war. This wasn't a declared war, it was an executive action. How the American public and the American legislature react to the inevitable rise in gas prices and the risk to troops on the ground is going to be a huge factor in whether Scenario 1 or Scenario 3 plays out.
It's a lot, Daniel. I hope this briefing helps you and our listeners make some sense of the chaos. We're living through history in real time, and it's not the kind of history that's easy to watch.
No, it's not. But it's the history we have. We'll be back as soon as there's a significant shift in the situation. For now, stay safe, stay curious, and keep asking those weird prompts. They're more important than ever.
And hey, if you've been listening to my weird prompts for a while, and you find these deep dives helpful, we'd really appreciate a quick review on your podcast app or on Spotify. It genuinely helps other people find the show, and in times like these, we think getting this kind of analysis out there is really important.
It really is. You can also find us at our website, myweirdprompts.com. We have the full RSS feed there and a contact form if you want to send us your own thoughts or questions about what's unfolding.
Thanks for sticking with us through a tough one. This has been My Weird Prompts.
Herman Poppleberry, signing off. Take care of each other out there.
Until next time, goodbye.
So, Corn, before we totally wrap, do you think the Oman breakthrough was ever really going to happen? Or was it just a smokescreen?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? If the Central Intelligence Agency is right, and the strikes were months in the planning, then the negotiations in Muscat might have been a distraction, either by the United States to keep Iran's guard down, or by Iran to buy time. But the fact that they were so close to a deal, it makes the current reality feel even more tragic.
It really does. It's like reaching for a lifeline and having it turn into a tripwire.
Exactly. All right, 1442 UTC. We're going to get this out to you all. Stay safe.
Talk soon.
Bye.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox Turbo.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring Daniel Rosehill's AI prompts, as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters including me, Cornelius the Sloth. Subscribe on Spotify or visit myweirdprompts.com.